We are just a couple of days removed from the end of the Super Bowl and the Chiefs taking home back-to-back championships, and an all-pro pass rusher in Haason Reddick has already been made available via trade from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles, they've had one of the best pass rushers in football for the last 2 seasons, but as Jalen Hurts starts to get paid and stuff like that, a lot of these contracts are going to catch up to him, and it seems like they may not have the money available to spend on Haason Reddick, so that's why they're making him available via trade. Do you think the Falcons will show interest in one of the premier pass rushers in the league?
I think they would be foolish not to at least spin the wheels on it. I mean, that's not to say that you have to, you're in desperate need. You got to make a deal because generally speaking, Howie Roseman has gotten the best of, or the better of a lot of GMs in the NFL. So generally, kind of like Alex Anthopoulos, where if you see that 404 area code, Alex Anthopoulos is calling. Generally speaking, it's better just to hang up. Similar with Howie Roseman, he generally knows what he's doing. But Haason Reddick, I think he's got like 27-ish sacks past 2 seasons. He's going to cost $15 million against the cap in 2024 for a double-digit sack guy. That's pennies. So, the expectation is if he is traded, he's going to want to sign a contract extension immediately. For the Falcons, yes, we're high on Arnold Ebiketie. He came along at the end of the year. I think everybody is still hopeful he can turn into that double-digit sack guy, but what's the harm in having 2 double-digit sack guys? I mean, nobody should be complaining about having multiple high-end pass rushers. I think the question is compensation. Eagles, what do you want? Haason Reddick, what do you want in a contract?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've just seen on Twitter and stuff like that, people doing hypothetical trades, and I don't know how much weight you should put into those, but it sounds like a 2nd or 3rd round pick seems to be like, but I mean, to me, if you're talking about a double-digit sack guy, I mean, you saw what Montez Sweat did up there in Chicago. They sent a 2nd round pick for him, or did they send a late first?
Yeah.
Was it a 2nd?
Yeah, late 2nd. Early 2nd.
Early 2nd. Yeah. I mean, and you see like now the Bears are already looking like geniuses for making that trade. And the Falcons had interest in Sweat and they didn't want to send a 1st round pick, which is understandable. Yeah. And the Bears had a better 2nd round pick, but still, I mean, you see what kind of impact that is. That now looks like a fantastic trade after just a few weeks that he spent in Chicago. Haason Reddick could have a same kind of impact. And I think when you add a guy like that, it makes guys like Ebiketie and Zach Harrison, who have shown some promise, that much better. And I think that is also something you have to take into account about his production in Philadelphia. I mean, he's playing with Fletcher Cox, a slew of elite defensive linemen, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, all these guys around him. And that makes life a lot easier for a pass rusher like Haason Reddick. You wonder if he'd be able to have that same production in a place like Atlanta where he'd really be that feature guy. But I think with Grady Jarrett, Onyemata, Zach Harrison, Ebiketie, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I think that, you get Grady Jarrett back, David Onyemata. That's one of the best 2 interior duos in the NFL. We're high on Arnold Ebiketie. What is he going to do in this 3rd offseason? Hopefully take that next monumental step. As you mentioned, Zach Harrison came along very nicely to end the season. But I do want to, what Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, the coaching staff, the front office, what they're going to weigh is it worth it to give up one of our draft picks for a guy and then pay him when in free agency there are all kinds of edge defenders that they're better than Haason Reddick. There's some that are a little worse than Haason Reddick but wouldn't cost as much. So you have to weigh these things. I'm talking elite pass rushers. I'm talking guys who are going to command $25 million per year. You got Danielle Hunter, Brian Burns, Josh Allen, kind of in that elite territory where they're going to break the bank, but they are certainly worth it. There is not a more valuable position in this game than pass rusher other than quarterback. When you have a guy that you can rely on, a game changer, a closer of sorts, it makes all the difference in the world. You see how valuable Chris Jones is. Not only is Patrick Mahomes kind of like always coming in clutch, but it feels like Chris Jones is always at some point affecting the quarterback when it matters most. That kind of guy is invaluable in this league. So if you Haason Reddick's not going to cost as much as those guys, but that's what they're going to be weighing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also going to be a lot of guys that come up via trade that, this is going to be a situation with a lot of guys. I know we talked I think we talked about Khalil Mack. So there's going to be other options. But this is definitely a situation that the Falcons have to have at the forefront of their offseason priorities. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's been the case for the last, decade plus, and they still haven't fixed it. Now you hope Terry Fontenot, he did make a big investment with David Onyemata that's really panned out. And I think you can expect him to continue to try to add bodies even as their primary targets this offseason with so many big names potentially available.
Yeah, I think, you could group these three positions together and say they are focal points of the offseason. In fact, double dipping in each of these markets is important. Quarterback, edge rusher, and wide receiver. I think that coming away with at least one premier player in each of those categories, preferably a premier player and somebody who offers, not as much, but still something. And each of those, that would be a beautiful offseason.
And one of those could come in the draft, because as we're going to talk about after the break, there are going to be some elite level talents available for the Falcons with the 8th overall pick.